I always remembered an old saying my grandfather used to have framed on his wall. Those who understand the value of land find peace in life. My life in a quiet corner of rural Texas embodied that peace. I had a small ranch, a trusty horse, a loyal dog named Rocky, and a dirt road leading to a tranquil river. That road wasn't just a path, it was a part of my land and my sense of freedom. But there was one thing the HOA didn't know about me: I wasn't just an ordinary landowner. I was also the county land commissioner, someone well-versed in property laws and boundaries. One morning while walking Rocky down my road toward the river, I noticed something odd. My private road had been blocked by a chain-link fence with a large sign that read, "No trespassing, HOA authorized." At first I thought it was a prank, but as I got closer I saw the fence was padlocked. Just as I was inspecting the obstruction, an SUV pulled up, and out stepped a man with a smug look on his face. It was David, the HOA president. "Mr. Khan," he said with a patronizing grin, "I'm sorry if this is inconvenient for you, but this road is now reserved for HOA members only." I held back my anger and asked, "David, this road is part of my private property. How can you block it?" He chuckled and replied dismissively, "It's a legal matter now. If you believe we're wrong, feel free to challenge it in court." I went back home and pulled out the old land deeds my grandfather had left me. As I reviewed the documents and cross-checked them with county records, something significant came to light. The road wasn't just part of my private property, it also included a section of county public land. This meant David and the HOA were not only trespassing on my rights but also violating public property laws. I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about a road, it was about standing up for my rights and the integrity of the land itself. David and the HOA had picked a fight with the wrong person, and they didn't even know it yet. After reviewing my land deeds and cross-referencing them with county records, it was clear that David and the HOA weren't just unethical, they were breaking the law. However, proving this in a way that couldn't be disputed required more than just paperwork. I decided to call on an old friend, Rashid Ahmed, an experienced legal advisor who had seen his fair share of property disputes. Rashid examined my documents thoroughly, his eyes narrowing as he flipped through the pages. Finally, he smiled and said, "Amar, your documents are rock solid. This road isn't just part of your property, a section of it is also designated as county public land. What the HOA has done here is not just wrong, it's outright illegal." Hearing Rashid confirm my suspicions gave me confidence, but I knew paperwork alone wouldn't be enough. To bring the HOA's true intentions to light, I needed to dig deeper into their activities. I started researching their board meeting minutes and projects. It didn't take long to uncover something alarming. David had orchestrated the roadblock for personal gain. His plan was to restrict the road for special HOA members who were willing to pay higher fees, all while pocketing a portion of the funds himself. This wasn't just an affront to my rights, it was a betrayal of the entire community. I decided it was time to expose David's schemes. For that, I called in another trusted friend, Ali, an expert in drone technology and surveillance. Ali conducted an aerial survey of my property and the road. The footage revealed something even more shocking. The HOA had illegally expanded onto a small portion of my land to create a so-called HOA park area. With clear evidence in hand, drone footage, land deeds, and records of HOA misconduct, I contacted the county inspectors and law enforcement. The inspectors were quick to act, opening an investigation and issuing a legal notice to David and the HOA board. David, true to form, dismissed the notice with a laugh. "Nothing will come of this," he said arrogantly. "Amar's just trying to scare us with empty threats." But I knew better. The wheels of justice were already in motion. I asked the inspectors and law enforcement officers to join me at an emergency HOA meeting where the entire community would be present. The meeting was scheduled at a community hall near my ranch. It wasn't just going to be a discussion, it was going to be a turning point. I was ready, and soon David and his HOA board would realize just how deep in trouble they were. Ask ChatGPT. The day of the meeting arrived and the community hall was packed. Residents filled every seat, murmuring in hushed tones about what was going on. At the center of it all sat David, his usual smug expression plastered across his face as he chatted with the HOA board members. He seemed completely unfazed, as if he were untouchable. I walked in with a calm demeanor, carrying a stack of documents and a flash drive containing the drone footage. Accompanying me were county inspectors and law enforcement officers, all of whom were here to ensure that the truth came out and justice was served. David began the meeting, speaking with his trademark confidence. He painted the roadblock as a necessary action for the community's security and betterment, and even justified the increased HOA fees as a step toward making the neighborhood more exclusive. "This is all for the greater good," he declared with a self-assured grin. When he was done, I stood up. "David, your version of the greater good seems to conveniently benefit you more than anyone else." He chuckled, clearly unimpressed. "And what exactly do you mean by that, Amar?" I walked to the projector, inserted the flash drive, and played the drone footage. The room fell silent as the video showed the fenced-off road, the illegal expansion into my land, and the so-called HOA park that was clearly on my property. I then placed my property deeds and maps on the table. These documents and this footage prove that this road is not only part of my private property but also partially county land. Blocking it is illegal, and your expansion into my land for your so-called park is nothing short of trespassing. The murmurs in the room grew louder as residents turned to each other, shocked at the revelation. David's smug expression faltered for the first time, replaced by visible discomfort. Before he could respond, the county inspector stood up and addressed the room. "Based on the evidence provided, the HOA board has been found in violation of property laws, including illegal encroachment and misuse of community funds. A formal investigation is underway, and further action will follow." David stood up, his face red with anger. "This is a baseless accusation. Amar is just trying to create trouble." The law enforcement officer accompanying the inspector stepped forward. "This is not a baseless accusation, Mr. David. You and your board members are being served a legal notice. If you fail to comply, there will be serious consequences." David slumped back into his chair, his bravado shattered. The room erupted into heated discussions as residents began demanding answers from the HOA board. I remained composed, watching as the weight of his actions finally dawned on David. As the meeting ended, the inspectors and officers began coordinating the removal of the illegal roadblock. The community members, though angry, began to rally together, realizing that change was finally possible. For me, this was just the beginning. Exposing David was one thing, but ensuring that the HOA operated with transparency and fairness was my ultimate goal. David and his cronies had picked the wrong person to mess with, and they were finally starting to understand that. Ask ChatGPT. David and his board members were now in serious trouble. The investigation by county inspectors and law enforcement had revealed the extent of their illegal activities, from misusing community funds to blocking public property for personal gain. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and the community, once manipulated by the HOA, was now demanding accountability. The court's decision was swift and clear. David and the HOA board were removed from their positions, heavily fined, and faced additional penalties for fraud and illegal encroachment. A few of the worst offenders, including David, were sentenced to jail time. The funds they had misused were redirected to projects that genuinely benefited the community, marking the beginning of a new chapter for everyone involved. While justice had been served, I knew there was still work to do. This wasn't just about punishing the corrupt, it was about building something better. To that end, I made a decision that surprised many. I donated a portion of my land to create a public park and walking trail. This wasn't a simple act of generosity, it was a message that the land should be for everyone to enjoy, not for a select few to exploit. The park became a symbol of change. Families gathered there, children played, and neighbors connected in ways they hadn't before. The community voted to name it Khan Community Park, in recognition of my efforts to stand up for what was right. I accepted the honor with humility, knowing that this was as much their victory as it was mine. David's downfall was a cautionary tale. The man who once wielded power so arrogantly was now a symbol of corruption and greed. His name was spoken with disdain, a reminder of what happens when you abuse trust and authority. As for the road, it was reopened without restrictions, a clear path that symbolized freedom and fairness. No longer blocked by fences or arbitrary rules, it was used by the community every day. People waved as they passed my ranch, and some stopped to express their gratitude personally. One evening, I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee in hand, Rocky at my feet, and my horse grazing in the distance. The sunset painted the sky with warm colors, and the air was filled with a sense of calm. I smiled, thinking about how everything had unfolded. David learned the hard way, I said to myself. You don't mess with someone who knows their rights. The chaos was over, replaced by a renewed sense of unity and purpose in the community. My land, my rights, and the trust of the people were restored. Life returned to its peaceful rhythm, and I knew that standing up for justice had made all the difference. Ask ChatGPT.